How would you like to share your military experience with me, Farron Dozier, retired Sergeant First Class, on Trench Talk? That's right, I'm looking for veterans, active members, family members, children of parents who serve, or if you have a resource that helps support veterans, contact me here, 323-215-5384, or visit www.trenchtalk.us and send me a message. And don't forget to go to facebook.com/trenchtalkus and like the page and listen to previous. Good evening. Welcome to Trench Talk. I'm your host, Farron Dozier. I want to thank you for listening in. As you've checked the social media, this is a very important conversation. As you know, I'm a retired veteran, and Trench Talk was a idea that was in my mind for years during my service. And we would drive and park and just talk under the stars with other veterans and talk about where we were from and just life experience. And that Trench Talk was like always in my head. And so when I retired and taking landmark education, I saw the power of sharing. And so Trench Talk was the perfect talk show to stay connected to veterans and also share information and resources. So been able to do this show for quite a few years now, and it's definitely my therapy. It definitely keeps me connected to veterans and being able to express myself, but also hear what other veterans are dealing with. And then, like I said, resources like yourself to come on and just share conversation. And so today I have two guests. I'm going to start off with Delena Zimmerman, who was, if you caught the Sports Collective TV show, she was there with us talking about athletes and sports and mental health, and why not transition into the similar conversation of veterans. So please introduce yourself for the Trench Talk listeners, and we'll get started.
Okay, great. My name is Delena Zimmerman. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work in the community. I work with at-risk youth, and I also have a private practice in Culver City where I see mostly adults and some adolescent clients. But what I've learned is that humanity is struggling with the same thing. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the story is, what the backdrop was, what the landmarks are.
Exactly.
Same stories. So.
And this is why we're having this conversation today, this special edition of Trench Talk. I have my guests as well. You're going to see Caldwell Williams, who I met, an 85-year-old Korean War era veteran who has done some phenomenal work since the 50s and 60s around counseling and youth, and now has taken on veterans. And we're out to interrupt the 22-a-day veterans that commit suicide, which we know are more. However, the stats, they say, are about 22 a day commit suicide. And so I met Caldwell mid last year, and he and I connected, and we've been on this path together to just keep his conversation alive of the counseling and the techniques and the conversations on how we can help our veteran, community. So I wanted to continue a conversation with you. I've done some work on myself, dealing with my own depression and anxiety from coming out of the military, my transition. So the VA programs really didn't work for me. So I found an education called landmark education that taught these principles about the study of being human. And then so it broke down all these different aspects of life. And you go down that tunnel and you look at your perception and interpretation of some of the things that maybe you misfiled as a kid, because of course, you're little people. And what I discovered as well is that we kind of discount the 5-year-old as this, you're just a little kid, you don't know. But we don't understand that brain is absorbing information and paying attention to behavior way before 5, as you were sharing offline. So kind of give just an overview of that conversation about the ages of where these developments start, and then I'll pick up to where the thought process, because I really wanted to have you talk about what I learned from a spiritual side is Dr. Miles Monroe is who I've been following his teachings, and he talks about precepts and the thought before the thought. Like there's a thought before the thought that we have, and then we have the precepts, the concepts, the ideas, and then you have your philosophies, and then you have your theology, because we're spiritual beings, so we're always going to gravitate to some type of spiritual, whether it's Jesus Christ or Buddhism or whatever. that spirit is always searching for something to connect to. And then he says how all that equates to your mentality or your attitude. And if any of that is corrupted, any of one of those areas are corrupted, then your belief system, the things that you filter life through as a conversation, when you talk to people and listen, if one of those things are corrupted, your whole belief system could be corrupted. And it's not saying it's right or wrong, but the definition of being corrupted, that might be misfiled misinformation that you've learned and downloaded in your heart that may not have been true. And I can attest that there were some things that I discovered about myself and my parents that it was not even true. Like a little 8-year-old, 5-year-old made up that story, and then I lived that through my parents. That was something missing. Yes. And it was just because, not them, I made it mean something about myself that was not even going on in the house. Right. So what can you say about that, those age levels?
Well, we talked earlier about how there's psychosocial development from the crib to the grave. And mistrust and trust is one of the first, it is the first psychosocial development. It happens in the crib. Many people feel like trust is impacted by the first heartbreak. Right. But in fact, it's very plausible that an infant can be hopeless in the crib if the environment doesn't feel safe, if they don't feel the closeness or the intimacy of their parent, if they cry too long. In some cultures, we say, leave the baby there. Don't spoil that baby, right? And so this baby doesn't feel safe in its environment. And it takes that mistrust, or on the scale, or let's say on the spectrum of trust and mistrust, somewhere along the way before it moves into the next development, which is about shame and autonomy. The milestone in the next age, 18 months to 3 years old, is potty training. And all that goes along with that. Don't touch that. That's hot. Yeah. And all these various things. If the child is shamed and scolded for making mistakes, then the child will have some type of developmental trauma on the spectrum of autonomy, where they feel safe, standing alone, and shame. Yeah. And then the next phase is from 3 to 5, which is about guilt and initiative. Will the child have initiative to explore and grow and develop? Or will the child feel guilty for making noises, touching your clothes, getting on your nerves, bothering you while you're on your cell phone? Right. And so potentially a child could have developmental traumas before they're even 5 years old. And the other thing that I want to talk about, since we're going to talk about thought, is that the brain only functions in a particular way up to the age of 12. So you're only recording information. Abstract thinking has not kicked in until you're 12 or 13 years old. That's why children learn with memory games. That's why we learn the alphabets from the placards on the elementary school wall. It's sight words. So I memorize. That's how I begin to learn. So when a child takes in information in the home, good kids get A's in school. So if you have C's, then you're not good. And that's how that first inferiority concepts come about. You become domesticated. And the goal when a child is experiencing pain or some type of rejection is that to not experience that, to only experience reward. And sometimes the reward is the spanking. Yeah. At least you're paying attention to it.
Exactly, right? Right. I learned that in adults, like people would rather get negative attention just to get any attention, just to have that.
I'm here. I'm on the planet. Yeah. Please see me.
And from what I learned is that it's not just your parents. You have to have some compassion and look at where your parents came from. Oh. So you have to go and look at your environment that taught your parents, and then when you see that, man, their life was just no wonder. Yes. Like they only knew what they knew. And when at 40, when I went to look at my parents, it was like, man, they were 19 and 20 years old. Like they were kids. So how could I have that much hatred or whatever resentment from what I thought I didn't get treated correctly or whatever those issues were? And when I looked and saw that I made those up, it was like, no way.
Well, we think that parents are objects. Okay, mom should meet all my needs. Dad should provide. Yeah. Dad should make me safe. Like we have them as objects, not as humans, to your point. So the moment that we can humanize our parents, like instead of mom, Connie was a girl. Connie was a girl They had a baby. And what were her fears? What was her doubts?
Exactly.
What did she think about herself? What was her insecurity? And what did me coming into her life mean to her? It doesn't mean the same to everybody.
Right.
This is not television or Disney. There was no happily ever after. It never occurred.
Right.
And so we have to also remember that that's the template that we're laying in our children is happily ever after, Prince Charming. Men want to live up to these ideas. They know they can't, so they don't. Yeah. And young girls are looking for a fantasy.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. Like, Disney was a template, and it was dishonest. And so we got to erase some of the objects, right? And have thoughts about what's real.
Right.
Everybody is doing the best they can on the planet. But I'll let you direct because I want to...
No, that's fine because it's like, so after you've downloaded all this information you're talking about from 18 months to 12, and then you start living out these decisions you made, and then it's like you've already made those decisions about yourself. And so now the thoughts that you have about yourself, when your mouth is not moving and that inner voice is telling you, you're not good enough. Right. Why even bother? But you haven't spoken out one word. Those thoughts, how do you then start to deal with your inner to manage that?
Well, in reality, okay? In reality.
Yeah.
Okay. Those thoughts persist until they impair enough, which cause a situation in order for you to look at it. Otherwise, you die with those thoughts or you kill yourself with those thoughts. And we were talking about suicidality, right?
Right.
And so, mental health is many things. And having a platform where we can all talk about it, expose its dark, shadowy places, is that we talked about this age group. So from 5 to 12 is where the inferiority and superiority complex is built. Mm-hmm. Either I feel that I am productive, I'm competent, or I feel inferior.
Right.
And so from 12 to 19, I'm building an identity. So if I feel inferior and I have shame and I have guilt and I have mistrust, by the time I'm 12 years old, I need anesthesia. Life is too painful. It either has to come through the adrenaline of sports, it has to come through the adrenaline of being fine and collecting men or women or, somebody looking at me, or my clothing or my car or my money or drugs and alcohol or fighting violence. Some people get their hit from violence. They're somebody always stepping on their tennis shoe. So it's like wherever they go, right? Somebody stepped on my shoe or I had to kick somebody's butt.
Yeah.
So that feeling, no one can live without power. That powerlessness has to be managed in some kind of way. And so it always gets managed with external forces until it looks like the external forces are the problem. It looks like alcoholism is the problem.
Right.
But it's not. It was the solution to the story, to that what it is you're talking about, to answer your question.
Yeah, no. And what else would you like to share about the thought process, if you want to?
Well, thinking is habitual.
We have like 60,000 thoughts a day or something like that.
They're habitual. There's a train of thought, and it's always chugging until I have an experience or have an opportunity to challenge that thinking. And I'm only going to challenge it once it has caused me, once it has reared its head and say, hey, you're going to have to look at this.
Yeah.
I want to say this. I want to make sure I get this out, is that I live my life by my feelings for the first years of my life. My feelings, what I feel like, what I don't feel like. I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm glad, I want to celebrate. But I'm not living my life by guiding principles. So it's one thing to walk in a room and to be nervous, right? Social anxiety, right? It's in the DSM-5. People are actually getting medication because they're afraid what people are thinking about them, which is ridiculous, okay? But it's okay. So I'm afraid what you think about me, and I feel it in my body, so I think it's real. But I have to understand that I think the thought, no, I'm not good enough. I've been thinking this since I was young. I feel the feeling. The endocrine system takes over and tells my body what to do. It's habitual.
The cognitive.
Every time I think that thought, I feel the same feeling, so I think it's real. And then so I do the same thing that I always do, was attach to the feeling or try to make the feeling go away. But if I have guiding principles that run my life, then I match that fear with courage. I walk through the door anyway. If I have faith, if I realize that I came to the planet to do this thing here, and I'm always going to have what I need. I'm sustained. I was sustained in my mother's womb, right?
Yeah.
I keep having this oxygen. It keeps coming. Is that more oxygen? Am I ever worried about oxygen? Nope. I'm sustained. And if I can remember, if I can practice and affirm, I'm sustained no matter what I feel.
Right.
Then with practice, I can affirm guiding principles like hope, faith, courage, perseverance, justice, brotherly love, man.
And those are ways of courage is a way of being. So then it goes back to the human being aspect of life. And I was that guy, I kid you not, up until I'll be 49 next week, 47. I had this thing in my head where I couldn't go to eat by myself because what are they going to think about me? Look at this guy by himself. What a bum. What of this? What of that? I wouldn't even walk to the store by myself because I would be like, what do these people think the car is looking at me like? He don't have no car. I got 5 cars. Like what was that thing? And until I actually addressed it and found that, man, that was some story you made up as a little kid that you was afraid of that you're not even happening today.
No.
And I was able to be free from that. And guess what? I went to the restaurant and ate by myself and had fun, walked to the store now. It's like, unless you address those things or know to address them, you have the feelings, it's cognitive behavior is what I had to deal with, is that body sensation, that the thought created that body sensation. And it took me back to that moment in time. And then my legs were crippled.
Yes.
And then I would be in the bed until I felt like, or force myself to say, you got to get up and go outside. But that was in my 40s, late 40s with that stuff. If
it's never, if it impairs, then it'll get attention.
Yeah.
If it wheel squeaks, then it'll get some oil.
Yeah.
And that selfishness, self-consumed, what about me? If everybody's thinking about themselves, nobody's thinking about you walking down the street.
Exactly.
Right? But you've kicked up that old idea from elementary school.
Yeah.
Right? That someone's going to notice that I'm not as good as they are. I'll say this. There's only one life. We're all having it. There is no better than or less than. Whether you jump out of, a rose or you get off your bicycle. There's one life. We're all having it. The same power that opens the flowers in the springtime is the same energy that exists in us. So when we begin to humanize ourselves, what I mean by that is realize that we have bodies. We're not our bodies.
Yeah.
And that there's this guiding principle that is governing us. Life gets simpler.
I know, listening to Dr. Miles, I credit him to my spirituality path because all my education about when I took Landmark, it brought you back to your purpose. And these are the things that I'm going to talk to Caldwell about.
Yes. Coming
out of the military, my life is over, and then finding that thing, that sickle cell trait gene that was almost killed me, was actually a gift. And now I can use that conversation to now educate people, but then it brings me to these other aspects of myself. Like, okay, so I manage arthritis. So I can talk to the arthritis community. I can talk to the military community. And these conversations, how important is it to live by some principle? How important is that? And I know quite a few people that don't, but they think they don't, but they actually do live by a principle. But when you talk to a person about, hey, how about these principles, most people don't think in that kind of a frame of mind. So before I let you get out of here, I know you got to... What can you say about how important it is to develop some form of principles to challenge your life? I know Dr. Sebi talked about nature, and he challenged medicine and healing up against nature, that nature has everything that we need for curing our bodies and healing our bodies. And I think that for our mental health or our mindset or being human, you got to have some kind of principle to balance, to challenge your mindset or your views up against something that you believe in to be truth outside of what your environment taught you to be true. Absolutely. What can you say to this?
Well, living in this America, right, where we're taught that we can pursue happiness, right? It doesn't say happiness within. It says happiness. And so in this America, happiness is on the internet. It's at Amazon, right? It's at Macy's. That's what happiness is. It's at, it's at the car lot.
Right.
And so my guiding principles don't exist. I'm just going by what I feel. I'm just serving my body, what this thing feels, what I'm so externally identified. So Principles are about an internal thing. It is about the guiding principles of what I actually am. So, and I can only illustrate it in this way.
Okay.
When I was in my mother's womb before I had a body,
okay,
because she had to grow me one.
Right. Okay.
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 When I was in my mother's womb before I had a body, I was me. And I show up on the ultrasound machine. It's this little white light. I don't have a face. I don't have a heartbeat. None of that yet. But I'm me. And so my mom grows me a body. She pushes it out. And I learn my ABCs. She even names it. And I live this life, and we go around the sun, and we go around the sun, and we go around the sun 49 times, you and I, this year.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the way, I'm going to leave this body here. There's going to be a funeral. In the front of the church, I'm going to be in the casket. Now, my body's going to be in the casket, but I'm not going to be anywhere around. Everybody's going to be there but me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to look at that. Wait a minute. There's got to be more to me than this body. Mm. You talk about usefulness, where you take the things that your story and you use it to heal others. Service. That's why we treat our spirit man. Mm-hmm. We take our so-called liabilities and turn them into assets.
Thank
okay?
You. Yeah.
So I have to know that I need something that governs the invisible part of me. And yes, my head comes up with the idea that that's scary. But if I'm connected to my source, that sent me to the planet in the first place, okay, then I know I'm sustained and I can walk through that door. There's no hurt, harm, or danger that comes to me. If I lose my body, and I will lose my body along the way of this journey, it's all well. But I know I'm going to die. But the question I'm going to leave your listeners is, will you live? Mm. Will you live? Will it matter that you took breath? Will it matter that you incarnated? Will it matter that you went through the pain that you went through and you'll serve another who's in the same pain? That's
what we're chasing now. Now that's what we're chasing now.
That's right.
Delena, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you for coming and being a part of the Trench Talk conversation and Sports Collective TV today.
Thank you.
Your time is valuable, I know. And again, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to take a quick break because I got Caldwell Williams, who we're going to speak directly to our veterans this evening about mental health and some of the counseling things that he has created and been working on. So like I said, since the 50s and 60s. So Caldwell Williams is up next, and we'll be right back. This is Trench Talk. Shout us out.
The Consortium of Health and Military Performance, also known as CHAMP, of the Uniformed Services University of Health and Science, known as USUHS, is conducting a study to understand a possible genetic link between sickle cell trait, known as SCT, and exercise-related events, known as EREs, such as exertional rhabdomyolysis, muscle damage, heat stroke, and or collapse. We are inviting African American men and women with sickle cell trait and their family members to participate. Participating in the study will require you to complete a health history questionnaire, a form authorizing our study physician to gather health information from you and your healthcare provider, as well as a one-time blood donation. In order to qualify for the study, you must meet the following criteria: be African American, be sickle cell trait positive, be able to read, speak, and understand English, be between the ages of 18 and 80, and currently not being treated for any mental or psychological disorders. Participation is completely voluntary, and your decision will not impact your healthcare. The results for this study are for research purposes only and are not intended to directly benefit any individual for confidentiality reasons. However, the results of this study are intended to help better shape policies and associated health risks affecting the SCT community. Participants may be compensated for their time. To join the study, or if you would like additional information regarding the study, please contact the study team by phone, area code 240-479-9514, or email sctstudy-ggg@usuhs.edu.
All right, welcome back to Trench Talk. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in and listening in today. It's been a very eventful day, coming from Sports Collective TV to now doing the Trench Talk episode. Make sure you catch the Sports Collective TV on Mondays right here on Morris Media Live as well. I'm a part of that conversation with my crew, and we deal with all aspects of sports, and I take on the mental health toughness in our conversations. And so right now we're on the Trench Talk episode here, and I have a very, very important person in my life now that I met, and he's going to talk about some of the counseling programs and what he's actually up to today for veterans, but I'm not going to steal your thunder, man. So this is Caldwell Williams. He is a dear friend of mine now. We've connected, and just introduce yourself, man, and let's have these dialogues.
got my DD-214 discharge, honorable discharge in 1963.
Oh my goodness!
And interesting enough, I stopped by the VA Center in West LA, Building 500 in West LA today, to request an ID card because the guys tell me you should have an ID card.
Right.
And so I said to the woman, I think I'm in the computer now because I came in last year and I was not. I wrote to the archives. I had not been present for 50 plus years, and so I'm now a certified veteran with an ID card in the mail.
No, see, this is Trench Talk. This man has served his country, and 50. How many years later?
Well, 63
63.
2018.
Never looked back at the VA. Never thought about even having benefits.
I didn't even consider myself a veteran. I mean, let me put it this way. I always wanted to participate in the culture. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see what that was like. I had dreams. My siblings and my neighbors would say, you can't do that.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
And so I quit telling them. I didn't give up my dreams, but I quit talking about them. Mm-hmm. There was a point, I would say, in my early 30s, where I had my epiphany. My gosh, I have exceeded my wildest teenage dreams.
Right.
And I had more.
Right.
So it never ends.
Never ends.
Purpose never ends. It's only furthered.
So at gracious 85 years old,
85
today you're here with me on Trench Talk, and there are so many topics that we could touch on, that we could speak to, as far as the work that you have done.
Well, let me tell you about what happened today.
Okay.
I sent to Mayor Eric Garcetti a letter.
Okay.
At the invitation of, at the time, his first director of Veteran Affairs, when he got elected in 2013. Mm-hmm. No mayor of Los Angeles had had an office of Veteran Affairs since 1946.
Oh, my goodness.
They'd closed the office down in 46, had ignored it for all those years. Eric Garcetti appointed Joseph Chicas as his director of Veteran Affairs. I called Joseph, introduced myself, because I wanted to meet some young people. I had been reaching out to some of my old corporate clients, but at age 80 plus, deceased, suffering dementia, I went, oh my gosh, I should meet some young people. And that's when I called Garcetti and connected. So served for about 18 months on they call it a veterans task force. Mm-hmm. It was literally a data collecting operation. They didn't say it, but they were just collecting data on veterans. And I was an outlier because I kept seeking to bring the conversation back to why are we here?
Right.
At long last, I had responded to my mother's admonition, Caldwell, if you need and want something done, do it yourself. So that's when I took off on this journey. Found a fellow named Bill Amundsen who was intrigued by what I had to say and offered some money. Mm-hmm. Will this help you prove your concept? I said, yeah. No matter what he had offered, I would have said, yeah.
Right.
And in 6 months, I made an appointment and delivered to him. I brought 6 veterans with me who had gone through my program. Young men, Iraq, Afghan service persons some had been picked up off the streets, some were in homeless shelters, and they were from all over. Mm-hmm. Some were had been suicidal, but they were all thriving, and said, this mental health education program has changed my life. Mm-hmm. And the tacit understanding was, prove your concept and you'll have a partner. Amundsen Foundation gives away $50 million a year.
Jeez.
But they have a mission statement.
Yes.
And the Amundsen money came from real estate.
Property.
And so property, yeah. And so their mission and their commitment, I apparently said in their charter, is they put their name on buildings. And Bill deviated from family policy.
Right, by
supporting gave me a few bucks. And when I said to him, okay, Bill, we're ready to run, and he said, not quite. Bill could not get his board, which is a family board, to support his deviation into helping veterans.
Yeah.
And so, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead. Which is going to lead us up to this conversation of your curriculum.
Yes. I, long ago, being 85, I think I spent about 40 years developing a curriculum. I posited that understanding the principles, the guiding principles, empowers one to make appropriate choices and get on with their life and do whatever they want to do. And if we could codify those principles and we can pass them along to others, and anybody who can communicate can pass them along to others, and like that, the mystery of the therapist, my mission was to demystify it. What does a therapist know that you need to know? And that is how my curriculum developed.
Okay.
In a world where that was not popular to do.
And this is like in what years when?
Well, starting in 1960.
Okay.
The only place I could get a job was as in education, because Sputnik had gone up and our nation was freaking out about, the Soviets are going to do whatever to us. We need math and science teachers. My minor had been economics. I sent my transcript to Sacramento and said, what do I need in order to get a teaching credential, secondary math teaching credential? And they sent back, described 2 courses. So I bypassed UCLA's bureaucracy, took those 2 courses and sent my transcript, and that's how I got a general secondary teaching credential.
Now, I want people to understand that you graduated from UCLA in what years?
1957. 1957, and this was 1958.
Right.
Because I couldn't get a job. My first degree was in business. And a colored man wanting to be a manager in business? You must be out of here.
That was the time frame.
Well, that was the time frame. Yeah. And that was, again, one of my dreams that I hadn't communicated. And even my university said, you can't do this. Okay, so I had met this amazing woman, young woman, and the choice was to fight these political battles or to pursue the dream life that I had. Okay, and I chose to pursue the dream life, to pursue love. Made all the difference, and I could get a job in education. And so my first teaching assignment, Audubon Junior High School in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, which is right across the street from where we are now. There were 2 colored girls on the faculty there, and then this black guy came in. My first assignment, remember now, general secondary teaching credential with a math specialty. My first assignment was 5 classes of 9th grade arithmetic. 5 classes, 150 kids who had flunked arithmetic since 3rd grade, had to pass arithmetic to graduate from Audubon to go into high school. And when I passed out the textbook, they threw them against the wall. So I had to create, I didn't have to, but that's how my head worked. Create a way for these persons to find that experience meaningful.
Right.
So I made it up and taught them the language. I won't bore you with the whole thing right now, but there are principles in mathematics. Associative, distributive, commutative. Okay.
Right.
I not only taught them the principles, I taught them the language. And these were kids that I later learned from the principal who were called the knuckle draggers. They'd flunked arithmetic since third grade.
Wow. And
here they were learning these words that youngsters the nerds in algebra weren't learning. And I didn't know this. But what I do know is that Christmas break, we had a faculty Christmas party, and the principal pulled me aside and said, "I'm really, really impressed with your relationship with students." Now, translated, that meant, I gave you the knuckle draggers, and these kids are behaving themselves, and they like their math class.
Right.
I want you in the counseling office. It was the first compliment I had had in 5 years of education. And so, what I need to do that? Well, work on your master's in educational psychology and your general pupil personnel counseling credential. Sacramento does that. Here again, send my transcript to Sacramento when they told me what I needed to do.
Right.
One other piece to this story which is relevant. The word got out among the knuckle draggers that this guy was cool. And so kids were getting kicked out of class to come to talk to me. And I was only in the counseling office half time, 3 periods. So I said to my committee, Cal State LA, brand new state college. This is 1960. I want to do my master's thesis in group counseling because all these kids have the same lament. Nobody understands me. And I want to see everybody who wants to see me. So if I put them together in groups, I could see everybody. They got back to me and said, "You can't do that." I'm doing it. I'm in a junior high school and I'm doing it. What do you mean I can't do that? That field doesn't exist. The academy's rules are, first we give you a reading list of all the experts in the field. And there is no field called group therapy or group counseling in 1960.
Wow.
And 2 of the boys, 2 of my committee, 2 of the 3, finally said, "Let the man do his thing." And I got permission to experiment with group counseling, which did not exist
in
1960.
60. Group counseling with the junior high school.
In a junior high school.
Wow.
And when Carl Rogers, who was one of my intellectual heroes, he'd written a book called Client-Centered Therapy, in which essentially said, perhaps a walk on the beach holding a person's hand and listening to them is worth months of lying on a couch looking at a cedar. And that resonated with me.
Yeah.
Well, he retired from Columbia in 63 and came down to La Jolla, and I implored my bride and infant son, "I want to go and see this guy." So I got in my Plymouth with my wife's support. Go for it, Caldwell. Drove down to La Jolla, and an eminent person like Carl Rogers was not difficult to find. Mm-hmm. And he said, "You're doing groups in a public school?" I said, "Yeah, since 1960. And I remember driving home with a smile on my face as big as yours is right now. Right. And what I realized, Carl just listened. Yeah. I had done all the excited, and I thought he was the most brilliant person I'd ever met, and all he had done was listen. Which is what he taught.
So how can you describe the curriculum that you created back in the 60s?
Well, it
to
evolved.
Be so effective.
It evolved. Starts with identifying who you are. And my experience has been virtually nobody knows. They haven't even considered that issue. So we can start with that question. I can raise the question, and we start with what your perceptions are, what your beliefs are about who you are. Well, in our culture, you are what you do. You know, I'm a basketball player, or I'm a math teacher. Okay. That's what you do. Who are you? And your previous guest hit it right on the head. There was a you before any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And she's positing that, and there'll be a you long after all this stuff. Well, you know, that's worthy of debate and discussion. So we start with that question. Really simple empirical assertions that we don't even think about. We haven't thought about, and that no human I've ever met, from 6-year-old first graders to corporate executives, ever says no to. And that is human being, right? That work for you? Yeah. Born of a father and a mother. Even if it was a petri dish, egg cell, sperm cell.
True.
Okay? And we kind of walk them through the process. Yeah. Okay. Born into a universe of stuff. This building, this radio show, birds, planes, planets. Born into an abundant universe of all there is. Your universe has all there is. And you're in it with abilities that are mind-boggling. You were 19 to 21 inches when you were born. Look at you now. 6, whatever.
3.
So ability to grow.
Yeah.
We're conversing in a language. You couldn't speak a language when you were born. Ability to learn. Ability to learn, to grow, and to create. One woman said to me just recently, I'm not creative. I said, what did you have for breakfast? Creation. The stuff is all here. Yeah. The abundant universe has it all here. We just move it around, and we call that creation.
You know, and it's some point, again, that I learned in this conversation of who we are as people, that we talk like this is who I am and that's it. Like, you talk like I'm a chair.
Yes.
And we don't think that people we're malleable. Like, we can learn. You can you can do these things, but our description of ourselves is like, that's just the way that I am, or that's just the way that they are, and then that's it. And it's like, a chair is a chair, and the chairs don't always be a chair. But we're not fixed objects.
Yeah, your previous guest made the point that early stage in our development, we see others as objects.
Exactly.
Which she could elaborate further on is the secret ingredient to the military taking malleable young men, mostly, and molding them or transforming them into killing machines. And the secret is objectification of the other. Make the other an object so you diminish empathy, if not extinguish it entirely.
Entirely, yes.
And now you're just killing a gook.
Yeah.
Or in the slavery days, you're just killing a nigger.
But they do that in all areas because
that's my point.
Yeah.
When I said in our earlier conversation, we live in a culture that has done this forever, and the spillover has not been confronted, and you need to confront the inconsistency in order to bust the game. Because that same objectification that enables the military to work is detrimental to the kid's personal relationship when he comes home and tries to create a family.
Yeah. It was taught. Yeah, it was taught that it was taught that, and so imagine if that's something you're already dealing with,
yes,
with a disconnection with your mom or
Yes,
relationships,
yes.
and then you go in that, and it's just icing's on the cake. So you can't have no feelings, no emotions. We were trained that you cannot worry about what your wife or girlfriend's doing at home, because in that 1 second if you daydream, it could get your whole squad killed. And at 19, I took that to heart.
Let me tell you something. I don't know if I should be talking about this on air, but I work with this group of Vietnam veterans there in Inglewood, all black guys. And all of whom were drafted from the South, because the notion of dodging the draft was beyond anything. Okay. For 100% of them, the military was an upgrade in their standard of living.
Yeah.
Cane cutting, plantation workers, cotton pick, okay. Opioids, dime a dozen. Every one of them came home addicted to heroin. And they didn't want to go back to the South because this was the 60s. They came to Los Angeles, Oakland, the North, with zero skills to navigate a modern society.
Yeah.
So they hustled, one step ahead of the law, until the law caught them. In prison, they encountered Elijah Muhammad. And this is the point of my story. Elijah, in his lifetime, I don't know if he's living or dead, but he couldn't articulate what I'm going to say, but he got the principle. Elijah objectified the white man, took his own principle and turned it on him. He's not a person, he's a devil. So you can do anything you want to him. And that was a secret to his recruitment success of blacks to black Muslims.
Right.
And this is not, I haven't seen it published anywhere, but I'm saying it's the same objectification
same
principle.
Yeah,
Yes,
same principle.
yes.
And so is that a human being function?
No,
I'm sure it's learned behavior.
It's learned behavior, but it's kind of how the world evolved. That's what remember now. The Western world evolved nationhood, and nations needed armies to propagate its policies.
Right.
And you needed kids who were malleable in order to do that. So you pull them together and you get them to do that.
We talked about going all the way back to the biblical days.
Yes.
And you talked about who were the kids that crucified Jesus Christ on the cross.
Yeah.
And you were like, they were little kids.
Well, they were teenagers.
Teenagers.
They were draftees, teenagers. And their MOS, their job was killing people all day, every day on crosses leading into Rome.
Yeah.
Until their service ended.
Yeah.
And nobody told their story 2,000 years later, but I guarantee you, every one of those kids went home damaged to dysfunctional lives. And then you wonder why Italy screwed up. What I'm saying is this has gone on.
Yeah, and it's just been transferred to today's society and the behavior. Yeah. It's almost a human kind of function.
Well, this is how we evolved.
Survive. That's how we survive.
Listen, I met Betty Friedan, so I'm old enough to have been around to meet the woman who wrote the book that said, it was called The Feminine Mystique. Betty Friedan was not pretty, okay? But she had a brain, and she used her brain. And she said to her Beverly Hills compatriots, you're sending your kids to the South to protest into the lunch counters, to try to break up the segregation game. And that's laudable. But what you are missing is you are suffering the same suppression in your own household as a woman. It was Betty who busted the game with her book. She's long dead, but her words were true. And along came Gloria Steinem, who was pretty, who became the face of the movement. But I don't want to forget Betty Friedan.
Right.
And the Me Too movement now is attributable to her because it began little by little to creep into our consciousness.
Exactly.
And so you get like a previous guest now in the university getting thorough training in understanding the principles of humanity and empathy.
Right.
I'm old enough. I told you about discovering group process.
Right.
At the same time, 1960, being other than heterosexual was considered an illness. Whatever deviation from the norm you were,
right,
was a treatable disease, and people were sent and spent thousands of dollars
to manage that.
Not to manage, to being healed.
Oh, healed! Wow,
from their illness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it in my lifetime,
right?
And in my lifetime, that same lifetime, Barack Obama got elected president of the United States, and gay people can get married.
Yeah. So what do you want the listeners and possible people who are interested in what you're up to today as far as interrupting the veteran suicide? This is the mission you're on today. So what do you want people to know about this task?
Veterans, these kids are fully human, fully able, and have much more life in front of them than behind them. And all they need is awakening to awareness of things we've already talked about.
Yeah.
You're able, and you're here, and it's all accessible to you. Thomas Jefferson posited that every man is created equal. That was an ideal in his declaration. If I were president, I would have said, no, Tom. All people aren't created equal. All people are equally created. We come to the same process, and that's enough. I'm not in competition with you.
Right.
I am who I am, and I can take what I have and who I am and run with it.
Right.
Now, what the larger society has a responsibility, if it wants to perpetuate itself, is once you become aware, give you the tools to run. Mm-hmm. That's what school is about. Exposing you to all these tools.
Yeah.
Find out who you are and which direction you want to go, and grab a shovel. Go for it.
Now, I understand that your curriculum initially created to work with youth, junior high school level, and then you
parents,
took it then corporate level, and you've done this in the corporate world from 1980 to 2000, where you went in and you trained corporate staffs.
Now, let me tell you this, and this is very, very exciting to me. When I retired in 2000, the annual corporate training budget was $52 billion a year. I checked last week on Google. Mm-hmm. $90.6 billion in 2018
of corporate training.
Corporate trainings, money spent on corporate trainings, and veterans who apply this curriculum to their own lives and thrive can be certified to take this information to corporate America and get compensated for it. Talk about
life after military.
Talk about career opportunity.
Yeah, life after military.
And so, because you can take it to the outreach to other veterans, you're credible because you're saying, "This is what happened to me." Mm-hmm. The first veteran that I certified, Chris Salazar. After he was certified, and he led a training and led another training. He said, "Caldwell, I want I want you to spend the day with me tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to do that. He took me to the Bell shelter. I didn't even know it existed. He said I was a suicidal drunk, and they picked me up off the streets, and he showed me the process they walked him through, from detoxification to move up to the next level, to the next level. And he said, and I went from here to your program. And this boy, when I last spoke with him, is getting a graduate degree in physics.
Wow.
His dad died. He didn't even go to the funeral. He was so alienated from his family. Out of our training, he reconnected with his family, with his only daughter and the ex-wife. Anyway,
got his life back.
He's got his life back.
Wow.
And discovered that he's smart. Majoring in physics.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I want to share this conversation, this last 5-6 minutes. It's not just an athlete. It's not just a veteran. That we are people, and so this same conversation is credible to people living with chronic illnesses.
Yes. Because the assertions that I made earlier are true for every human being.
Right. And it's not that you were born with this chronic illness and that's who you are. That's not who you are. That's just one part of who you are.
That's a condition with which you must deal. And everyone has those, each one unique.
Yeah, exactly.
To
exactly.
One of the young men whom I loved as much as I loved my own son, Bill Taubman, was born into a family that was one of the great Jewish fortunes in the United States. His grandfather had come from Soviet Union and into Oklahoma to strike it in oil, and discovered that nobody had cornered the market on pipes and gauges and to move the oil from the fields. So he cornered that market. And Bill, I met because his mother called me on the phone and said, "My son is on heroin. Would you be willing to talk to him?" And that's how we met.
Wow.
Along the path. And where I was, this country boy from East Texas, the farm boy, was trying to learn. Okay? It was a learning curve. And I was learning as much as I was teaching. We had different things to share with one another. And he said to me at one point, "You're fortunate." "I'm fortunate that you were born poor, so you didn't have to deal with all this stuff I have to deal with." And I said, "Just different stuff."
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I by this time I knew it was just different stuff. Well, at age 37, Bill died of ALS. And I'm 85 and still here. So I am fortunate.
Yeah. So what do you want listeners to know how they can help you with this conversation around interrupting suicide?
I'm interested in transforming how America perceives and treats its young people after they've done their service. I'm interested in putting some meat on thank you for your service. It should be more than lip service.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming America for that. America has to be taught what's needed. They don't know.
Right.
So they do what they're, what the PR says.
Right. Exactly. What PR talks about.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And so, in order to accomplish that transformation, we need resources.
Yeah.
We need, and specifically in Los Angeles, where there are more veterans than any other county in the United States.
Definitely.
We need a conspicuous home where everybody passing by will know, oh, this is the new veterans program, where learning process, this personal transformation process, this certification process, this whole process can be scaled up, and you guys do the work, including the work to reach out to bring others in and transform their lives, but also do the work selling these services to corporations to become self-sustaining.
Exactly.
And thirdly, reach out to Audubon Junior High School kids and say, I know who you are. I came from this neighborhood too, and this is a journey that I'm on, and this is what's happened to me, and I am willing to be a role model for you. I will tell you the truth. Life is more than putting the ball in the hoop.
And you have the curriculum ready to go, all prepared.
Yes.
Just those resources are required to help facilitate that, and you can give them a scalable product. And thank
you for giving me this platform to introduce that notion.
Yeah.
You'll hear more from us.
For sure. Caldwell, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate you. I mean, everything that you're out to impact veterans. I went through it, through my path. Yes, I still have to manage my mental health, but I got a sense of life. I got another life. Like, I don't want to. It's like there's a community of people that I can now connect with. That even when I feel down, it don't feel like I'm worth anything.
We humans need other humans.
Exactly. So I appreciate you for allowing me to share this with the community of veterans, so we can really find programs, because everybody's, if you're a square and the program that the VA has for you is a circle, then you may not fit in that. Then where do you go? And I was one of those. Like, I was fortunate to find an education outside of that I had to pay for, but it still helped me in my mental health. It helped me to sit here, and be here.
What I said to the mayor today in the letter I wrote him is, we need to continue to develop models of service outreach for veterans, because nobody's worked it out. Not one model fits all.
Now, exactly.
Right.
Again, thank you for listening in. This is Trench Talk Special Edition right here. Caldwell, Delena, thank you both for being here and sharing this conversation with me. Again, social media at Trench Talk US, or you can follow the Farron Dozier Show on Instagram as well. There'll be more conversations coming along. Again, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, shout us out. What's the count? And for information on sickle cell trait, wdconsct.org. Shout us out. How would you like to share your military experience with me, Farron Dozier, retired Sergeant First Class, on Trench Talk? That's right. I'm looking for veterans, active members, family members, children of parents who serve, or if you have a resource that helps support veterans, contact me here, 323-215-5384, or visit www.trenchtalk.us and send me a message. And don't forget to go to facebook.com/Trench Talk US and like the page and listen to previous